Good evening. Welcome to Eco News Global. Tonight, we are tracking the massive economic shifts in Southeast Asia's largest economy, Indonesia. A nation of over 280 million people is navigating a critical transition period following the years of global economic turbulence.
That's right, AMALEEN, because Indonesia's economy relies so heavily on international trading, natural resources, and domestic household consumption, it remains incredibly sensitive to global external shocks, most notably the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight, we look at the nation's multi-year battle to stabilize its inflation and protect the purchasing power of its citizens.
For a closer look at the numbers, let's check the historical timeline from 2020 to 2025. ALEEYA, what does the data show?
Well, it has been a roller coaster ride. During the height of the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, large-scale movement restrictions, known locally as PSBB, crippled household consumption. This massive drop in aggregate demand actually forced inflation down, leading to distinct periods of deflation. However, as the economy reopened in 2022, inflation skyrocketed to a significant 5.51% due to sudden fuel price adjustment, supply chain disruptions, and global commodity shocks.
An alarming spike, but a trend that gradually stabilized. Let's bring in our economic analyst, Ms. AMELIN, to break down exactly what drove these dramatic supply and demand fluctuations.
Thank you, Ms. AMALEEN. When we look under the hood of Indonesia's economy, three core factors emerge: supply, demand, and external market pressure. On the supply side, as the global economy recovered, international price of crude oil, food, and raw materials increased significantly. Because Indonesian industry rely heavily on imported material, a depreciating rupiah exchange rate made imports more expensive. This caused imported inflation, forcing companies to pass higher production and transportation costs directly onto customer.
And what about the supply chain themselves, Ms. ELISYA?
They were completely bottlenecked, Ms. ALEEYA. Global logistical disruption made a severely limited supply of imported raw materials and consumer goods made recovering post-pandemic demand, pushing production costs up dramatically. On the flip side, whenever consumer spending plummeted during the pandemic under PSBB, it completely drained aggregate demand, creating that temporary, unusually low inflation environment we saw early on.
Alright, thank you, Ms. ELISYA, for the analysis. But economics isn't just about graphs and percentages. It's also about people. For a look at how this impacts everyday lives, let's cross over live to our on-ground reporter, FATIHAH in Jakarta.
Thank you, AMELIN. Standing here in the heart of Jakarta, the real-world effect of inflation are clearly felt. When prices continue to increase, it triggered a severe drop in household purchasing power, meaning consumers can afford fewer goods and services with the exact same amount of income. This hit lower income, fixed income families the hardest, because these households spend most of their income on basic necessities. Inflation acts as a direct hit to their survival, drawing up poverty rates and lowering social welfare. We have also spoken to local business owners who tell us that a post-pandemic inflation, rising interest rate have made borrowing incredibly expensive. Facing so much market uncertainty, private business are hesitant to make a new investment to expand, which ultimately drags down Indonesia's overall economic growth. That's all from me, Farzana Hana. Back to you guys in the studio, AMELIN.
Heartbreaking but crucial context, Farzana. Now, the big question is, how is Indonesia fighting back? Joining us now is our policy expert, Ms. FATIHAH. How is the country keeping this number in check?
Thank you, Ms. ALEEYA. To address inflation, Indonesia has adopted comprehensive approach that combines both fiscal and monetary policies. Its coordinated attack using both fiscal and monetary policies. On the fiscal side, the Indonesian government stepped in to directly reduce the impacts of inflations by implementing fuel and electricity subsidies, targeted cash assistance, BLT, food assistance programs, and stabilizing the distribution of essentials. Their measures successfully lowered the immediate cost of living and protected household consumptions.
And what about the central bank's role? Fatima?
Bank Indonesia has been highly proactive. Under the Bank Indonesia Act, their primary mandate is to maintain rupiah stability by ensuring price and exchange rate stability. Since adopting the Inflation Targeting Framework, or ITF, in 2005, they have used benchmark interest rate to regulate spending, borrowing, and investments. Following the global financial crisis, they introduced the flexible ITF to respond more effectively to changing economic conditions. This framework rests on 5 core elements: inflation targeting, monitoring and macro-prudential coordinations, exchange rate stability, government policy coordinations, and lastly, transparent policy communications. To make this policy transmission more effective, Bank Indonesia introduced the BI 7 days reverse repo rate on August 19, 2016 as its benchmark policy rate to signal market corridors and keep inflation within its targeted bounds.
Fascinating policy structure. Let's bring in our financial correspondent Mr. HAFIZ for the final outlook. Reports from a 2025 Reuters report showed inflation staying below Bank Indonesia's target range despite continued economic growth. What is the verdict moving forward, Mr. Hafiz?
The verdict is that coordinated policy works, but alertness is required. While inflation has slowed down due to tighter monetary policy, household spending remains soft. To maintain stable path forward, we have 5 core recommendations for the economic roadmap. First, coordinate monetary and fiscal policies. Bank Indonesia and the government must work closely together to keep inflation under control while supporting economic growth. Second, support low-income households. Provide targeted food subsidies and cash assistance to help families cope with rising living costs during periods of high inflation. Third, strengthen food supply. Invest in agriculture, transportation, and logistics to improve food supply and reduce dependence on imports. Fourth, encourage more investment. Create a stable and transparent business environment to attract both local and foreign investors, helping boost long-term growth. Fifth, make better use of data, monitor inflation trends, consumer spending, and global prices regularly so the government can respond quickly and make better policy decisions.
Brilliant analysis, Mr. Hafiz. Ultimately, Indonesia's journey from 2020 to 2025 proves how vulnerable a modern economy is to external shocks, but it also proves how resilient it can be when monetary and fiscal policies work in harmony.
Absolutely. Maintaining that stable inflation remains essential for protecting purchasing power, supporting sustainable growth, and improving the welfare of the Indonesian population.
That is all for our special economic report tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Stay safe and have a wonderful evening.